This is the second video on your marriage story. If you haven't watched video 1, please go back. The link should be right below this video. So, in the first video, we talked about how your marriage can be like a story. You can have a good story, you can have a bad story, you can have something right in between. Granted, a marriage is far more complex than a story. However, knowing some of the reasons bad stories are written can help you to avoid challenges in your own marriage. A skillful storyteller knows that every good story has certain signposts that help captivate the reader. Bad stories miss those signals or beats. Because you're not only an author in your marriage story, but also a main character, those signposts really matter. There's a saying, the wise person has his eyes in his head, but the fool walks in darkness. Without knowing those signposts, you're writing and walking in darkness. Now you know how bad stories get written, by the writer not knowing the key beats in every good story. When this happens, the writer is flying blind. You've also learned that troubled marriages are a lot like a badly written story. They both can feel flat, boring, forgettable, a waste of time, or leave you anxious and depressed. Is it possible then that knowing what a good story is can help you to better appreciate and author your own marriage story? That instead of flying blind till you get to the end and realize you've missed out, what if you could go all in, fully informed and intentional? Knowing the key beats of a good marriage story helps you in 3 primary ways. 1. Find meaning in, connection to, and purpose for each other's past. 2. Have perspective of and persistence during your present. 3. Apply wisdom, intention, and anticipation to your future. Notice the similarity to basic story structure. There's a beginning, middle, and end. However, as I will share shortly, those are not the elements which make for a great story. Even the bad stories have a beginning, middle, and end. In fact, you may even believe that those are the only key beats to your marriage story. You get married, you stay married, then the marriage ends. If that's as far as you imagine a marriage can and will be, you're already missing out what it takes to make a great story. So, what are the elements to a great marriage story? What makes for a great marriage story starts with knowing where to look. The first place to start looking is for the right kind of story. There are all kinds of stories: drama, mystery, horror, or even comedy. But what kind of story would you want for your marriage story? A love story. What I did is I looked for a love story which was not only the most widely read love story ever. I looked for a love story which actually caused people who read it to fall in love. After I describe the key elements, I'll share with you part of this story. But first, let's look at the key elements. Adventure. Don't the best love stories also seem to combine a sense of adventure, whether it occurs during a storm at high sea or while racing through outer space to defeat an evil empire? The adventure takes the story and relationship to another level. Do you have the element of adventure in your marriage? And how can you inject more adventure in your life? Revelation. A love story where the 2 main characters don't change how they see themselves, each other, or the rest of the world would feel pretty flat. Great stories contain a revelation, often more than one, that transforms the characters. Do you know how and where to look for revelation in your own marriage story? forgiveness. If a love story were all roses between the couple, there wouldn't be any conflict. Not only would that be boring, but it would be unrealistic. But if they stayed in conflict, soaked in bitterness and revenge, it wouldn't make for a good story. Do you have a compelling and convicting model of true forgiveness to write this chapter in your story? Death. Love stories always face a moment of loss. It's the point where something held dear seems to die, where hope fades. Putting this moment into the bigger story not only helps you see the way out, but to appreciate it. Redemption. Many amazing stories have redemption at its heart. Often one person redeeming the other is the spine of the love story. Sometimes the relationship itself is what redeems one or both of the characters from a pain in their life. How deeply is the redemption beat woven into your marriage story? Resurrection. Maybe they don't literally come to life as Neo does in The Matrix after a kiss. But a love story has something once dead come back to life. Your story can have the same if you know how to look for it and where to see resurrection as an essential beat. Freedom. Even though love is about two people being together, great stories are also about freedom. It could be freedom from social convention, family expectations, personal baggage, or even the past. How are you experiencing freedom while being knit together in your marriage? We just covered a lot in this video. And before we get to the next video, ask yourself this question. Are you ready to write your marriage story?